Our sermon title today is The Resentful Elder Brother. Our evening Lenten series has been focused on that parable known as the prodigal son, and I think that some people may be getting kind of tired of hearing it, but if you think about it, there's a lot of things to unpack in this story that Jesus gives us. As we read from Luke's gospel tonight, we heard that the elder son was in the field when the younger son came back, and the elder son learned his father was celebrating the younger son's return. It's not unusual for people to get jealous, and even sometimes they can take it just a little bit further. This is not so unusual in a family. Families have all of these things, especially when they have lots of siblings. In families, you can have an elder brother or younger brother who are favored. Sometimes in large families, you have special treatment of kids or children given to special, the favorites, I guess I'd say. I can remember when I was growing up, my grandmother called my older brother Johnny Angel. In other words, my older brother could do no wrong. It didn't matter what was going on. Johnny Angel was Johnny Angel. And I used to tease my younger brothers about our older brothers always getting the better part of things. At that time we had, 5 of us. And so what John wore, Dave wore. What Dave wore, I wore. What I wore, Art wore. It just went down the road, right? That's how it was done. And now today they buy jeans with holes in them. Back then we were patching holes. But it is that way that there's always going to be a favorite. And I always tease I'm teasing my kids now because they have kids of their own. And I say, so which one's your favorite? Oh, no, I don't love anyone any different. And I did the same thing to them. They were all loved differently. But no matter what we do, no matter what happens, someone gets hurt, someone has a feeling hurt. And I can remember my brothers and I getting in arguments. And of course, if my grandmother was around, John was always the one that was cleared of any argument. But if the rest of us were around, it was normally going to be myself or Art, my younger brother Art, that got in trouble. We were probably the most mischievous, and we probably did get in the most trouble. We pushed the buttons just perfectly. We didn't have a lot of resentment, but we did have a lot of jealousy. There was jealousy going on in our family. Jealousy for what people could do, what people would say. I can remember a time when I was older where my grandmother said to me, and I think I said this on a Sunday sermon, that Art, I can't believe he turned out as good as he did. I thought he was going to be a bum. He had long hair and he had all these things going on. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, that was me. But I didn't say anything to my grandmother. I just let her talk about Art because that's who was on her mind at the time. Why should I confess that I was the one with the long hair that always got into trouble? These resentments, these jealousies, these things that happen are all through every family. It doesn't matter how you look at it. Favoritism happened to one parent or another. Even the kids would favor one parent over another. If the kids were in trouble, they always went to mom. Wanda would give them more grace than I would. They would never come to me if they did something wrong. They knew they were going to get punished. So they would always go to mom, and then they would say, would you talk to dad for me? Because there was a parent there that they could talk with, and then Wanda would talk to me about it. I can remember doing that with my parents as well. How about when you're an employee and you see one employee is being treated differently than the rest of us? That's happened before too. Where someone is being treated differently. And the treatment goes on and on and on. And so as you see these things happening, these injustices is what we would call them, you want to speak out, but then again, you're afraid to speak out because your job depends on it. So you carry a little resentment around with you. You're not jealous at that point, you're resentful. Perhaps you may relate to this dilemma that takes place in human behavior. Maybe you don't. Maybe you've never had it. It's not a personality defect. It's just something that happens at times. All of us, if we are truly honest, go through it. Resentment isn't always applied to a person because sometimes It's not the person, but the situation that people hold resentment for or towards. Resentment is probably one of the most pervasive evils of our time. It's something that is very real, very wicked, and is very, very destructive in the life of the person who's holding on to the resentment. We who are in this room and those who will listen online are not free from feeling this way. Resentment is something that can settle inside your heart, and it can encompass your heart and can create damage in your heart. Resentment is precisely the pitfall of our faith. And if it gets infected into your heart and you walk away from it, the obedience of hardworking people that are in faith will walk away from their faith because of resentment. And how do we get to that point? How do we get to this point, we ask ourselves, that we are so resentful for what happened or the situation that we're in? How do we get to the point where we're so resentful about our past issues and things that have gone on in our lives? We would be easily able to resent things that have happened over the past few years. We would be easy to look back at your life and say there are situations you were in that you should have never been put in, but you were put in them anyways. And at that time, you may not have thought about it, but as you looked at it, there is resentfulness in that time. Like the elder son who did I'd say the best he could in being good. He did all the good things. Who might think that he's going to be praised by all these people. He might think because he stayed and he's working in the fields, he's sticking around and helping his father, he ends up more lost spiritually than the younger son who ran off. Why? Because he let all of the jealousy and the anger build up inside of him. So his heart was hardened. He didn't see the property as his own. He saw the property as his father's. The elder son is lost in a very different way than the younger brother. The elder son is not free towards his father because he is bound by the resentment that he has for his father and bound by resentment that he has for his brother. We hear that in his words, the words of the elder son spoken by Jesus. The elder son resented being obedient and caring for the father's property. But what the elder son didn't realize was it was his property. The father had already given it to him. He wasn't building up the father's property anymore. He was building up his own property. He resented not being able to have his own life while his father's property grew and grew and grew. And his father now forgave his brother and gave him a fatted calf. The elder brother resented that father because the father gave the younger brother his portion of the inheritance. And he never recognized that in giving the younger brother his inheritance, the father automatically gave the elder brother his inheritance. Because the younger brother cannot inherit without the older brother inheriting the property and all the goods that were on the property. The resentfulness comes because of a misunderstanding, an understanding of not knowing that the father actually gave it to him. Expecting the father to keep going on, expecting him to work. And what do we hear him say? I've worked like a slave for you, a servant. The resentment he felt was more than just being upset or angry. The resentment had built over the time, this long period of time. And now we hear just how spiritually lost the elder son was. How many times have we felt that type of resentment? How many times have we thought about the things that we should be taking care of? We think that it's someone else's, but the person has actually given us permission to do it for ourselves. How often have we had a communication with someone where it was completely misunderstood? That's not what I said. I said this, but that's not what they heard. And so the other person builds resentment towards you because they heard something completely different than what you heard or what you said. These things happen because of the behaviors of our life. It's human nature. In so many ways, you are a good person, and you try to do what is right and right things in life. You try to do what's right, and you walk in a life journey with Jesus. Perhaps you are giving your life for others, and you are connected to several ministries or several different organizations that you serve in. Without question, just in the natural way of things are, you have every reason to believe you should be thanked or praised for the generous time that you've given. But it doesn't happen. It's no different than when I took the youth group in Ohio for a mission trip in southern Ohio, where we were working, helping these families that were destitute. Cleaning houses, fixing houses, painting houses, washing walls inside houses. And one of the kids would sit around a big circle. One of the kids would sit there, and they said to me, "Pastor, we've been here for 3 days and no one has said thank you. Not one person has said thank you to them." And I asked them, "Did you come to get thanks or did you come to serve Jesus?" Because that's what we're there for. That's what our church is here for. So sometimes you won't hear the word of thanks. Sometimes you'll be praised. Sometimes you'll hear nothing. Sometimes someone else will get the thanks that you think that you should have gotten. And that's where I'll pick up on the sermon. You didn't start out thinking about being thanked or praised for all you do for others. But somewhere along the journey, you've witnessed others who have done less getting recognized. This didn't bother you at first because you said, "I'm doing it for the church," or "I'm doing it for Jesus. I'm doing it for the people that I'm trying to help." I go back to that circle of kids, and we talked about that for about 20 minutes because it was important for them to understand that they were there to serve Christ. Thanks did come, but it came whenever the people wanted to say it. It wasn't an obligation for them to say it. And some of the crews came back and they talked about being thanked and being liked, and someone buying pizza for them or doing this for them. And other crews came back with no stories like that. And so there was resentment even in our small group. It happens. And what we have to remember is we are there to serve. And so when we see other people getting their thanks or getting something done or praises for them, it seems that the work that you're doing is not worthy or you're being pushed aside. The comments you've overheard about others serving hurt you. But then as time goes on, you find out that you are feeling some resentment toward the person being recognized as well. And when that happens, it doesn't only hurt the person, it hurts you. And it hurts the church, or it hurts the organization you're serving. The wound of resentment becomes buried in your heart, and it begins to affect your spirituality. How can you remove the resentment that holds you lost and emotionally, I guess I'd say emotionally and spiritually, empty? Well, you got to do like the elder son. You have to take it to the Father, and you have to confess it. You have to confess the hurt and the pain of the resentment that you have. In a practical way, you can speak to the people you know and you serve and let them know that you've been feeling this wound that doesn't seem to be going away. It wasn't not the intention of your work, but it has surfaced. And because it has surfaced, it has grabbed hold of you spiritually. And when these things happen, there is no way to step away from it. It has to be confronted, just as the elder son had to confront his resentment to the Father. By going to the Father and discussing his resentment, the lost elder son also was found and saved from a journey in life with a hardened heart. Because there is no way to have life with a hardened heart. And we should do the same. Remove the resentment that holds us captive and give them to God. For in God, all things are made right. Amen.